Hey, what's up? This is HJB representing Triple Threat Sports. And Joe's about to talk to you guys about the big trade that just happened and how it reflects on the reality of the situation in the NBA.
Okay. The big trade between the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics, it reflects a greater reality of life in the NBA. Consider the fact that since 1980, only 9 different teams, franchises, have won NBA championships. 9. Over 30 years of basketball, 9 teams have won championships. And it reflects the reality that, given the fact that there's 5 players on the court at one time, and the best players, whether it's Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, given that they can have such an influence on the game, given there's only 5 players on the court, they can control the game so much that the NBA is really a collection of dynasties, one after the other. And when you're a general manager or an ownership group in this reality, it's interesting how you can approach it. The Brooklyn Nets have decided they were the 4th seed last season, and they lost in the first round in heartbreaking fashion to the Chicago Bulls. They've decided to add 2 players, aging players, old players even, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett from the Boston Celtics. The Celtics have decided, rightly in my opinion, that they won their championship some years ago. They came close, not this past season, but the previous season. They took the Miami Heat to 7 games. This past season they lost in the first round to the New York Knicks. They made the right call by saying they cannot win a championship with the group as it is now. So they've traded off. They even traded their coach to the Clippers, ironically. But they traded their best players in an obvious rebuild. The draft picks, they got 3 draft picks from the Brooklyn Nets, and they figure to have a lottery pick next year, given that next season they won't be a good team, given that they traded away their best player. Next year's draft is supposed to be a killer draft, and also a killer free agent market coming up after the end of the season. They figure they've given themselves a good chance to capitalize on that and rebuild quickly. I believe they have 6 draft picks in the next, maybe more than 6, at least 6 in the next 3 drafts. They're going to hopefully rebuild. That's their plan. The Nets have decided that they want to make a run for the championship now, getting Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce to go with Davin Williams, Brook Lopez, and Joe Johnson in the starting 5, which on paper is a formidable starting 5, even though Pierce and Garnett are pretty old. And it's interesting, how do you approach it? It's very difficult, given what I said, to win a championship in the NBA if you don't have the best player. LeBron James in this case. Do you rebuild? Do you constantly rebuild? Do you keep yourself flexibly rebuilding in an effort to land the next big player? Or do you put a team together that's expensive and over the salary cap, a great deal? The Nets are going to pay $80 million just in a tax because they're over the cap this coming season to add these 2 players. Do you be like the Celtics and rebuild, hoping that you can land the next LeBron James, the next Kevin Durant, the next Tim Duncan, and go from there? Or do you try against the odds, and it is against the odds, to beat the current dynasty? The Nets, with a rich billionaire owner, have decided to try to beat the current dynasty in the Heat. The Celtics have not the same situation necessarily because they won a championship already. To break it up, go for the big draft in 2014 and the free agent class in 2014. Which way do you go? I, for one, wouldn't mind the Knicks even considering the trade Chandler and Anthony, and I'm a Knicks fan, because currently the Knicks cannot beat even the Pacers, never mind the Heat, the way they're currently built. So that's the trouble in the NBA. There's very few chances. It's not hockey, it's not baseball, it's not football. In the NBA, simply the best team wins. Do you try against the odds to make a miracle run if you're not the best team, or do you keep yourself in perpetual rebuilding? I would rather rebuild and hope to get lucky. Hope to play the chances, play the probabilities, and get lucky. The Nets have decided to try to beat the dynasty. We'll see what happens. Thank you.
I'm just going to say this. If Doc Rivers can win a championship with the Los Angeles Clippers, I'm going to laugh at this whole situation. Now, this is HJB, along with my bro Joe, and we out.